Hey there, Tyler, the D20NN contributor, and I'm here to do an official unboxing of the officially licensed Dungeons & Dragons Clue. There have been a few crossover board games between Dungeons & Dragons and various other board game companies, most notably the Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, which is a spin-off of the Betrayal at House on the Hill. This is one of the more, I guess, name brand board games that they have officially crossed over with. Now, of course, being Dungeons & Dragons, there's going to be a bit more variation on the rules of Clue. According to this, an infernal puzzle box delivered by a Hellrider of Elturel has been stolen from the party of adventurers. Determined to reclaim their box of infernal secrets, one of Zariel's minions has slain and secretly replaced an adventurer unbeknownst to the rest of the members. In Clue Dungeons & Dragons, it's up to you to determine who has been replaced by a devil in disguise, what weapon was used in the execution, and where in the Forgotten Realms the infernal puzzle box could be hidden. I've already taken the liberty of unwrapping the box. I haven't opened up anything else from it, so we're going to take an official look at what we've got in here. First and foremost, we got the actual board itself. Already looks pretty different from the typical Clue board. Instead of specific rooms, we've got different sections of the city of Baldur's Gate itself. Looks like we've got the Basilisk Gate, the Dungeon of the Dead, the Undercellar, among many more other locations. Pretty well set up recreation of the classic Clue board. Looks like there's still shortcuts to be found. Now, here we go to the actual player characters we can do. Now, we've got, obviously, purple, green, yellow, white, blue, and red, like, you know, the traditional Clue characters, but these are notably D&D characters. So we've got Minsk and Boo here. We've got Rhea Mantlemorn, then Lulu, then Slobberchops, then Phalistar Fisk, and Silvira Savikas. I'm sure I horribly butchered those names, but what are you going to do? Next, we have the scoreboard. Again, typical Clue stuff. You've got the who, each of the characters. You've got the what, the specific weapons that were used, and the where, the different locations in Baldur's Gate. Now, speaking of the weapons, the Great Sword, the Demon Longbow, the Silver Claws, the Mastercraft Scimitar, the Horn of Blasting, and the Censer of Remembrance. Definitely a lot more interesting than the typical rope, gun, knife, whatever you'd find in any edition of Clue. Got 2d6, which is standard for any Clue game, which, honestly, I mean, you'd think that in a game efficiently licensed from Dungeons & Dragons, you'd get to use a bit more dice, honestly. I mean, I know that would really completely screw up the rules, but, I mean, come on, using a d20 somewhere, there's got to be a way to do it. And finally, we have our cards. And it doesn't appear that we actually have the... We've got more cards here than your typical location, item, and person cards. We've got some new ones. Zariel, specifically, there are 8 Zariel cards in the Intrigue deck. The first 7 do nothing. If you draw them, you place the card face up underneath the board so everyone can see how many Zariel cards there are. If you draw the 8th Zariel card, then Zariel and her minions have captured you and you are out of the game. That's a nice little twist on Clue, kind of an otherworldly force working against you as you're working against your other players. We have cards including Infernal Assassin, Cult of the Absolute, an Anonymous Tip, Raving Cultist, Swarm of Imps, and Beguiling Offer. So it's interesting, we've already got a different spin on the rules here, which I suppose now would be a good time to actually go over those rules and see what exactly kind of differences we're looking at here. Much like traditional Clue, you'll have a suspect, an item, and a location placed into the little manila envelope included in the game. Now, where it gets interesting are these intrigue cards. If you land on a question mark, you roll a question mark, or are moved into a location to be questioned, you may draw an intrigue card. Now, there are two types of these. First, there are the keepers. If you draw a keeper, you get to keep it. Makes sense there. These good cards are used in different ways throughout the game. You can have and play as many keepers as you like in any turn. Power cards. The power side shows a power that each player has. This goes back to your little character personality card. Power is usable once per game. After you use it, you turn the card over to the personality side. The personality side gives some information about that player, but has no effect on the game. For example, let's look at our classic Minsk and Boo. On the opposite side of the personality card, it says, once per game, you may randomly pick a card to look at from someone you just showed a card to. And looking at, let's look at Slobber Chops. Once per game, you may move twice, roll the dice, move, then roll again. So, nifty little abilities that each character has that you wouldn't really find in a typical Clue game, but honestly, definitely sounds like it mixed things up. The rest of the rules are your pretty standard Clue fare. In order to win, you have to make sure you can accurately guess who the agent of Zariel is. You have to guess what the weapon was, and you have to guess the exact location. If you're right, then hey, you win, the game is won. If you're wrong, the cards that you looked at go back into the envelope, and at that point, you can't make any more accusations. You can only ask questions at that point, you can't do nothing. And if everyone attempts to make an accusation and everyone is wrong, game's over. Everything's done. That's it. You know, you can play the typical game of Clue, you know, left, right, and center. You know it inside and out. But I like the different variant rules that this edition certainly has thrown out for you. You know, I really find the Zariel aspect to be really interesting. And the intrigue cards to mix up the way the game is played itself, it actually almost does put a slight betrayal twist on this classic game. And honestly, I'm all about that kind of stuff. So, my personal opinion, definitely check it out. I think I'll be playing this here pretty soon. I definitely hope you enjoy it, because pretty sure I will.